Alright, what's going on, guys? Trev back again. Here to bring you another video. This one's going to be doing a throwback Walking Dead video review for The Walking Dead Season 1, Episode 4, which is called Vatos. Okay, so for those of you guys who are fairly new to my channel, you might be wondering, why are you reviewing such an old episode at this point? And the reason for it being is because I initially had reviewed this in my first channel, which you can actually still see in this channel. If you check the other channels listed, you can go and check out my first channel. But I had to remove it because I used some pictures and had some trouble with copyright, so I had to remove all of my Walking Dead Season 1 reviews, and I did not have them backed up. So, in order to have a complete section of reviews for The Walking Dead, I want to have reviews for absolutely every single episode. And the only ones that my channel is missing at this time are the last 3 episodes of The Walking Dead Season 1. Season 2 is there, Season 3 is there in their entirety, all the discussion videos, all the versus topics, all those different kinds of topics, predictions, everything. But I'm a completist. I don't want to have any gaps. I want to have a review for absolutely every single episode of The Walking Dead. So if people want to go back and watch maybe one of their favorite episodes or a review of it, because people do, even to this day, people still watch some of the Season 1 reviews that I have in Season 2 and things like that. They can go ahead and go back and watch that if they, because we're all such big Walking Dead fans. Plus, Under the Dome has been a mixed bag for me. I don't know if I'm going to do a review this week of it. It came down to, should I review Under the Dome Season 1 Episode 4, or should I review Vatos? So I was like, forget it. I'll just do Vatos. I'd rather watch that anyway, so maybe I'll watch Under the Dome later and do a review for that later. So, throwback review. Being able to go back and watch one of the earlier episodes and reflect on it now that we're further along in the series to give us some more insight is kind of fun to do since we know how everything turned out. Obviously, the main themes of this episode are basically, spoilers by the way, even though everyone should have probably seen this at least a couple times by now. This is my 3rd time watching it over, and I still enjoy it very much. Main themes. Recovering from the whole Merle on the roof thing, Daryl finding the hand there, so the parts with that, the bag of guns leading into meeting the Vatos characters, and then of course the camp at the end being attacked. So those are really the 3 main focuses of this episode. You have Jim, who has pretty good focus in this week's episode. We get to find out a little bit about him as it's 100 degrees outside and he's digging graves, essentially. He doesn't even really know why, or he can't explain why when he's first asked. The characters in the group become concerned, especially Dale, who's kind of taken on the role of, I want to say, a fatherly figure in the group. He even has a point in this episode near the end of it where he's doing some, talking about some philosophy at the campfire as relating to time, things of that nature. So he really feels like, the fatherly figure of the group. Very cool to have, sort of to maintain that sense of humanity and a surrogate father, so to speak, for everybody there, which doesn't end here. That goes on further, and then since he's killed off sooner, Herschel sort of assumes that role with the whole "Rick, get back here," if you guys remember that, and all kinds of things that he says and does, and Rick going to him for advice kind of fills Dale's spot. But it's cool to see, having Jeffrey DeMunn there as Dale in this one, and up until the end of Season 2, really. He's a fun character too. So him and Jim, I enjoy seeing them two a lot because obviously they're not around anymore in the series. So it's kind of special when you get to see some things from them. Scene I love when Jim's kind of got heat stroke and he's freaking out, and Shane takes him down after he takes a swing at Shane with the shovel. Shane takes him down and he says, "Don't worry, Jim, nobody's going to hurt you." And great quote, one that people even still bring up in the chat sometimes in the videos and stuff. He says, "That's the biggest lie there is." That's basically the same thing he told his wife and kids, before they were eaten, essentially. And then after, he says a few more things, and he says, "The only reason I got away was because the dead were too busy eating my family." So that's a really brutal one, and it kind of gives you an idea of why he behaves the way he does and why he's just shut down. You can kind of think of it as like, what if both Lori and Carl died at that time for Rick? How would he respond? How would he behave? It'd be totally different. He'd be probably shut off, and he really wouldn't care too much about anything. Similar to how Jim would act too. So we can all kind of relate to that. And also the idea of him at first digging, not really knowing why, not remembering why, something about a dream he had, and then after, at the end of the episode, saying, now I remember why I was digging, or I remember the dream, or whatever the case may be. So I like that whole, sort of hinting at what was about to happen, and then afterwards him being like, oh yeah, that's why I was digging, and those graves are going to come in handy now. So I liked all of those things. In terms of the Daryl and the group going through Atlanta to see, to see if Merle's there and everything like that. That's pretty exciting stuff. I like how Daryl goes after it and he gets the hand and he notices that Merle must have cauterized the hand and gotten away, and then that the van was missing, or their vehicle was missing at the end of the episode, was really cool stuff too. Of course, later on we find out that the governor and Woodbury actually was there and were able to help Merle off the rooftop, were able to help him get away. So that was good stuff. Really cool in hindsight to kind of go back and watch that and be able to put the pieces together now as well too. There's some foreshadowing here. Daryl says, I didn't notice this before, but when they're leaving, he says, he says, I wonder how long, or something, how long can they last, as he's talking about the Vatos after they leave. Because it's like, yeah, they're inner city, in Atlanta. You've got the elderly people there that they're trying to protect. It really doesn't feel like they're going to really be able to make it very long by themselves, the location they're in. And at first, when I first watched this episode a couple years ago, I really felt like it didn't make sense that the Vatos would even be there to begin with in that location. And it's kind of convenient that Rick and the group run into them and they see the bag of guns and everything like that. But I guess nowadays, when I think about it again, it does feel kind of natural, because if you think about it, number one, as Daryl says, they actually don't survive very long. The governor's group attacks them and takes all their stuff. So they, first of all, they're there now because this is like the beginning of the zombie apocalypse. So it is true that you would have lots of different survivors, small little groups, that could survive for the first little part. But in the long run, after a year, a few months, there's so many of these groups are not going to be able to survive. So I think it makes sense that they would be there at this time, because it's like right at the beginning of the zombie apocalypse. It hasn't been that long yet, maybe a couple months in type thing. So it makes sense that they would be surviving there, and for now, because they're going to die soon afterwards. So that way it doesn't really feel contrived to me, because it is natural that some of them would be there. They can't leave because they're retired people. They won't, because they wouldn't be able to survive the trip and everything like that. So they stay there and just survive as best they can. But as Daryl says, not for very long. In terms of G and the characters, Felipe and everything, it's a nice twist. It's kind of interesting the way, I think Kirkman wrote this episode. I'm pretty sure he did. It's interesting the way G, the actor who plays him, really comes off hard at first. Like, he's kind of intimidating, kind of scary, the words he uses, the words he chooses to use against Rick, very hard, But then after you see the grandma walk out, Daryl says, get the old lady out of the line of fire. And it really it's a nice twist to go from that to that. And nowadays, when I watch it again, I like it better. When I saw it originally, I was like, I don't know how I was feeling it. Maybe it's because it wasn't in the comic book and it was added on. But nowadays, when I think about it, yeah, it doesn't really feel contrived. It actually does feel pretty natural, because there would be small little splinter groups in bad locations at the beginning. And maybe they'd be able to make it for a little while. But if they're in a bad spot, sooner or later they're going to get overrun, or somebody's going to take them over, this kind of thing. And that does end up happening to them. So it matches better, I think, and it makes more sense when you think of it that way. And I do like the Vatos for the most part. The whole trade thing with Glenn and all that, it's pretty exciting. It's pretty interesting. So I did enjoy that quite a bit. There are a few slow spots in the episode, which is okay, because there's some really exciting stuff too. But at the beginning, you have Andrew and Amy sitting in a boat. That scene for me goes on too long. I don't really care for that one as much. I mean, they catch a lot of fish and all that stuff, but there are a number of slower parts in this episode that maybe detract from it a little bit. And let's see. The funny part, when the grandma thinks that Rick is there to arrest Felipe. That's pretty genius, because he's wearing his cop outfit and everything. And then Rick has to explain to her, no, I'm not here to arrest your grandson. where he's helping me find a missing person. So I really like the way they worked that all in, and it was kind of new and funny and exciting at the same time. So there's a lot of different elements coming together with that whole thing of funny, exciting, tense, all these relief after, and then of course they realize that they're at the end that their vehicle's gone, so they gotta get back to the campsite as fast as they can, which they of course do. And then the ending of this episode is, of course, extremely exciting. For those of us who read the comic series before watching, we already knew what was going to happen with Amy in particular, but there was a lot of other characters too, like Ed. That was pretty fun to see him get it too, and just other like random survivors that were part of the group that I didn't even really know were there because they weren't shown really, that you got the sense that the walkers that came in, it was a good size, maybe about 10, 20, a couple dozen maybe walkers that came through, really killed a good number of survivors, maybe like 4 or 5, maybe a few more type survivors, in this episode. I think in the next episode Shane says how many. Did he say 7? I forget exactly. I have to watch the episode again. It's been a couple years since I've seen the next one. So all in all, it was a really good episode. It's not one of my favorites from season 1 because I generally, the Vatos for me, I don't know how I feel about it. Like I was explaining before, I do like the idea now, but for some reason at first I was like it's a little bit too unbelievable that you have retirees surviving. But then again, you do have members of Rick's group at that time, like Ed, who's defenseless, can't defend himself against one female walker. Amy, who's totally defenseless, can't even move out of the way when a walker's coming towards her and bites her in the arm and all that. So there are a good number of survivors that are with groups that are not strong enough to survive on their own. And we even see that later on, too, with Milton and characters like that because they're being protected by others, they're able to survive. So, it does make sense to that degree. So, it's not one of my favorite episodes, but I do like it very much, even still. And I do have to give it a good rating because there's only a couple small parts, and there's only a couple things in it. It does have a really nice mix of tension, excitement, with the slow little character development parts. And then, of course, at the end, the huge payoff, and it adds something that the comic series didn't have, which is the Vatos group, which is fun now, and I do like it, and kind of finishes off that Merle storyline for season 1 until we see him for season 3. So that's all good stuff. So I'm going to give this episode a 9 out of 10. I do think it's a great episode, even still. Just for some reason, for me personally, it's not one of my favorites for season 1. I don't exactly know why, but it's not. Pretty funny part when Daryl shoots Felipe in the ass with the arrow. I love that part. So that's pretty good too. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I got to say about Vatos. It's a great episode and definitely fun to watch even still after all this time to go back and check it out again. And let's see, there's 2 more from season 1 after review, episodes 5 and 6. And I'm going to do them. Even if people don't watch or whatever at this time, I'm going to do them. So please, anybody who is interested in seeing those, please write in the comments below. Let me know if you do want to see me finish those, because I do really want to have, a complete, reviews for every single episode of The Walking Dead, since it's such a demanded and heavy focus for my channel. Because you guys know, I do other things too, but people just want to see more Walking Dead videos, so I got to do what you guys want, so that's what I've pretty much been doing. So 2 more to go. I will do them. When? I don't know. I'll try to do them fairly soon. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So let me know what you guys thought about the throwback review. If, any other topics, suggestions, that kind of stuff, let me know, and I'll call it here. That's it for this video, guys. I'll see you for the next one. This is Trev, and I'm saying peace.